What's good? It's Woog. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. We've got Thiago Santos, 21 wins and 9 losses, taking on Johnny Walker, 18 wins, 5 losses. This is the number 4 ranked contender at light heavyweight Thiago Santos versus the number 10 ranked contender Johnny Walker. And I was kind of thinking about how I was going to approach this one because this is just a very exciting and fun matchup. I mean, you basically have striker versus striker here. And these guys are in very different places in their careers. I mean, you've got Johnny Walker, who's still kind of considered a prospect, even though he's 29 years old. And then you've got Thiago Santos, who's 37 years old and a former title contender. Now, after Thiago Santos suffered back-to-back losses in 2016 against Gegard Mousasi, who's still doing this thing out in Bellator, currently the middleweight champ over there, but you had Mousasi and Eric Spicely both not only beat Thiago Santos, but stop him via knockout for Mousasi and submission, rear naked choke for Spicely. After those back-to-back losses, Thiago Santos won his next 4 fights. The last 2 of those were against Jack Hermanson and Anthony Smith. Both of those were via TKO, and both started with body kicks and ended in punches. So he was on a 4-fight win streak on a roll, and then he lost via KO to Derek Branch, the very heavy striking Derek Branch. And again, that was by knockout. But then Thiago Santos went on this run of 4 fights where he beat in succession Kevin Holland, Eric Anders, Jimmy Manuwa, and Jan Blachowicz, the current light heavyweight champion. 4-fight winning streak, and again, there was a 4-fight winning streak just before that with the David Branch loss kind of splitting the 2 4-fight win streaks for Santos. By the way, that fight against Eric Anders involved probably the greatest display of fatigue I think I've ever seen in the cage. This was scheduled as a 5-rounder, but by the end of the 3rd round, Eric Anders was so spent he couldn't walk back to his corner. He actually collapsed. They helped him up, and then he collapsed again on the way to the corner. Just extreme fatigue. It was a referee stoppage, TKO win for Thiago Santos. And then Santos knocked out Jimmy Manuwa, and then Thiago Santos fights Jan Blachowicz in a very technical, pretty close fight. And then Santos caught Blachowicz in the 3rd round, ended up finishing him there. By that point in Blachowicz's career, he was kind of looking like he had already hit his ceiling and that he would then be on the descent. Not only age-wise, but because of some of his recent performances where Blachowicz was on the losing end. And this was such a good win for Thiago Santos that his next fight would be for the title against Jon Jones. In my book, the greatest mixed martial artist in the sport's history. I've got Anderson Silva 2 and GSP 3. I understand they're very differing opinions in how you rank your all-timers. Some will disqualify Jones simply because of the PED test. I consider that and still have Jon Jones as number 1. But it's another discussion for another day. But when Santos fought Jon Jones, he tore 3 of his knee ligaments, like his MCL, ACL, and I believe his LCL. He tore those in the middle rounds. However, he completed the 5 rounds against Jon Jones and actually took a scorecard. This is the first fighter to win on one judge's scorecard against Jon Jones's in his career. So this was a split decision win for Jon Jones where it was kind of a question. It's like you've got this guy who's wounded, who's got a bum knee, and bum knee is putting it lightly. I mean, this guy tore his ligaments. That's the difference between being hurt and being injured. When you've torn multiple ligaments in your knee, that's very serious. It's amazing that Santos finished that fight. And I wonder if going the other 2 rounds, the additional 2 rounds, actually led to further damage to his knee that would then require a longer amount of rehabilitation. So, I mean, Jon Jones was messed up after this fight too. I remember him, I believe, being kind of carried out like that. This was a very damaging, grueling 5-rounder. Again, very close fight. Jon Jones seemingly didn't put his foot on the gas and was pretty comfortable with going to a scorecards in a fight where, going into the scorecards, I wasn't sure who won it. I thought Jones did enough to win it, but I felt like it was going to be close. It wasn't as anti-Jones as I thought the Dominic Reyes versus Jones fight was, where going into the scorecards, I thought Reyes deserved the decision win. In this one, I thought Jones might have edged it, but it certainly wasn't clear enough to where Jones should have been afforded the luxury of taking his foot off the gas for the last couple rounds. I really felt like Jon Jones seemingly left a lot to chance in that one, where again, Thiago Santos fought a super spirited fight, but he wouldn't return to the cage for like another year and a half because of how bad that injury was for Santos. And when he did get back into the cage, it was against Glover Teixeira. And I thought that was a rough matchup for Thiago Santos. Santos hurt Teixeira so badly in that first round. I thought that they might stop it in the first round because he dropped Teixeira face first after hurting him a couple times. So he clipped him, hit him again. Teixeira would go for the takedown. Santos would hit him a couple more times. Teixeira would get back up, and then he dropped Teixeira again. But Teixeira worked through it like he does in so many different fights, where he gets hurt early and then finds a way to get the guy's leg and then to make it a grappling fight. Well, the next couple rounds were hell for Thiago Santos. I mean, Teixeira put a beating on him, flattened him out, just beat on him some more. Santos was kind of in survival mode. As badly as Santos hurt Teixeira in that first round, Teixeira did so much in the later half of that round to where Teixeira won that round, even though, again, he was nearly stopped because, Santos's punches and kicks, the guy's a hammer. I mean, his nickname is Maheta, Sledgehammer. Super heavy-handed. Again, he almost put Teixeira away, but you don't find too many guys more durable than Glover Teixeira. Well, Teixeira got dropped again in the third round by Thiago Santos because Santos almost got submitted at the end of the second round, made it into the third round, knocked Teixeira down. But again, by that point, Santos was gassing because, again, Teixeira was pressuring him, eventually got a reversal and a takedown, and that was all she wrote. He ended up choking Thiago Santos out. Very disappointing loss if you're Thiago Santos. Again, that was his first return to the cage after losing that decision loss against Jon Jones. So at that point, now Thiago Santos went from title challenger to descending down the top 5 rankings. And that win for Glover Teixeira earned him the next title shot against current champ Jan Blachowicz. A very improbable road back to the title for Glover Teixeira, who once challenged Jon Jones a few years ago for the belt. I mean, Glover Teixeira has been written off more than once, especially against Alexander Gustafsson, where he got dropped and stopped against him after just getting beaten the hell up over the course of several rounds. Well, again, Teixeira's back in the title challenger seat against Jan Blachowicz, but Thiago Santos would then go on to fight Alexander Rakic, who's kind of one of these new, names in the game in light heavyweight, who is on a path apparently to the title if things keep going well for him. Well, Rakic is a very tall fighter. He's 6'5", to Thiago Santos is 6'2". So he was able to control distance, and he's one of these kind of risk mitigating fighters where he's doing enough he's a great round winner. You've got some guys who will just get you out of there because they're such devastating strikers. You have other guys who are basically outclassing you and winning the round. Leon Edwards, for instance. Well, again, Rakic has his own means of doing so, but he's a risk mitigating round winner, and he certainly was that against Thiago Santos. He won a unanimous decision where it seemed like Santos wasn't able to get out of the first or second gear. Like, we weren't able to see Santos do the things that made him special when he was on those, 2 different 4-fight win streaks, beating very good guys, like stopping current champ Jan Blachowicz. We didn't see that type of devastating striking from Santos against Rakic because Rakic was doing what he was doing so well in kickboxing from the outside and more or less controlling the stand-up while discouraging Santos's advances. And plus, Santos being 37 years old, it's hard to keep your foot on the gas and keep moving in on a guy who's fighting more of a perimeter, keep it on the outside style of fight. So this is Santos's first fight since that loss to Rakic, and it's against Johnny Walker, who, again, was a super heralded prospect. He was one of these sexy names in the game because of how unorthodox some of his finishes were, how athletic he is just on the eyeball test. The guy is built like an athlete and he performs like an athlete when things are going well for him. Well, that Johnny Walker hype train was derailed against Corey Anderson, where Anderson clipped him again, ended up finishing him in the first round on that, I think it was on the BMF undercard, that being Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz. Well, I mean, before that, super visible setback for Johnny Walker. You know, he had beaten Khalil Roundtree Jr. Via stoppage with an elbow. He stopped Serkinov via TKO with a flying knee. Again, he was doing a whole bunch of gnarly stuff that had a lot of fans wanting to see him fast-tracked against champion John Jones because it was such a different look. It's like, well, we've seen Jones beat this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Let's give him something totally new, like this unorthodox, athlete who's just as tall, if not just a shade taller than John Jones, with a comparable reach and this very unique set of striking skills. Well, again, that hype train was derailed against Corey Anderson, and then in Johnny Walker's very next fight, it was against Nikita Krylov, where he was basically taken down, controlled on the ground, and he was just kind of beaten up and held there and lost via unanimous decision to Krylov. That was a very disappointing loss, discouraging loss, because now you didn't only surprisingly get stopped by Corey Anderson, but now it's like, okay, we knew what you were good at. Now your lack of a ground game is looking like an Achilles heel, which could provide a blueprint going forward for guys beating you who don't want to engage in too much of the stand-up with you. Well, about 6 months later, Johnny Walker would fight against Ryan Spann, who we just saw lose via stoppage against Anthony Smith. And Spann had his moments. He dropped the hell out of Johnny Walker. He hurt him pretty bad. But then he got like overzealous, overcommitted to like a takedown. And then he got caught. So then he fell forward, was still trying to go for the takedown, but was doing so kind of recklessly, where he had his head to the side of Johnny Walker, where Johnny Walker was then able to kind of Travis Brown elbow the guy with his back, Johnny Walker's back to the side of the cage, elbowing the side of Ryan Spann's head, where he basically knocked him out with that. Very impressive win for Johnny Walker. Big setback for Ryan Spann. I'm actually surprised that he got a headline opportunity against Anthony Smith recently. But in fairness, he did have a win in between those two losses. I'm talking about Ryan Spann. He did beat Misha Serkinov between those Johnny Walker and Anthony Smith fights. But I think that, Ryan Spann seems like he's got the skill, he's got the abilities to do some great things and to hurt just about anybody. But it's a thing about staying composed when things start to break down and scrambles start to occur and then exchanges start to fly, just to not get too overzealous that would then leave you vulnerable to getting stopped yourself. And I think that we've seen two instances recently of Ryan Spann doing just that against Johnny Walker and against Anthony Smith. Although against Smith, I felt like it was more a case of Smith just being such a experienced, composed, and patient striker who just knows several ways to beat you and has dealt with just about every situation in the cage because of his experience. I feel like Smith, you could have run it back and run it back again. And I think that at this stage, at least where they are right now, you would get the same result with Smith against Ryan Spann. But Johnny Walker, after beating Ryan Spann, this is his first fight back against Thiago Santos. And although Santos has lost his last 3 consecutive fights, Thiago Santos still isn't Ryan Spann. I don't think he's going to leave himself as vulnerable to those types of things because of Thiago Santos's experience. So what do I expect out of Thiago Santos versus Johnny Walker? I think Walker's going to have his moments, and I think he can hurt Thiago Santos. I mean, hell, he can obviously stop Thiago Santos and vice versa. I just think the most likely scenario that's going to play out is, I was saying that Thiago Santos against Glover Teixeira, with Teixeira being his first fight back after that devastating knee injury, that it was a bad matchup. Well, I think Thiago Santos is a very bad matchup for Johnny Walker. Not because he could take him down like, Krylov did, but because he's such an experienced stand-up fighter, and Johnny Walker isn't the same distance controller that Alexander Rakic is. I don't think he can fight the same round-winning style against Thiago Santos that Rakic was able to. Johnny Walker's a little bit more feast or famine in the stand-up, where I can knock you out, or who knows, I could get clipped myself. But the bullets are flying, and they're flying viciously with Johnny Walker. And, the fact that he doesn't have any 5-round experience under his belt. Whereas, again, Thiago Santos went the whole 5 rounds against John Jones and has gone the distance several times in 3-rounders. He just has a lot more late-round experience than Johnny Walker. And although Thiago Santos is 37 years old, which is problematic now, right? Even though we're seeing a title fight in this very division between 2 old guys, Glover Teixeira and Jan Blachowicz. But yeah, Thiago Santos is 37, relied a lot on athleticism to be able to get his devastating strikes off. Thiago Santos will be giving up 3 inches in height against Johnny Walker like he did against Alexander Rakic. Both Walker and Rakic are 6'5". Thiago Santos is 6'2", and he's given up even more in reach. This is a 76-inch reach for Thiago Santos against an 82-inch reach for Johnny Walker. So a couple questions I have, like how well or how good are Thiago Santos's legs right now? I feel like there's something that he lost in that knee injury that he will never get back. Kind of like Tony Ferguson when he had the devastating knee injury. And although Ferguson did beat Showtime Pettis and Cowboy Cerrone after the knee injury, I don't think that it was the same Tony Ferguson that had fought RDA or Edson Barboza or Kevin Lee. It wasn't the same Tony Ferguson, in my opinion. Well, Thiago Santos, I don't think we're getting the same guy that rattled off those 2 4-fight win streaks and stopped Jan Blachowicz. It's not the same guy in there, but he does still have absolute hammers, devastating punching power. I just don't know if he could rattle off a ton of leg kicks against Johnny Walker. I don't know how much faith and confidence he has in his legs' durability at this stage. Go rewatch him against Glover Teixeira and listen to some of that corner commentary from Santos's corner advising him on some leg-related techniques where he couldn't be reliant on his legs. I mean, if I interpreted that correctly, I mean, that's not a good sign. So then you've got a Thiago Santos who is going to be more or less reduced to boxing with Johnny Walker. I do think that he's going to have to find opportunities to do some kicking just to get Johnny Walker's respect in that regard. But I feel like even if Walker has some success against Santos in the first round, and even if he drops him, I feel like Santos is experienced enough to survive that and then to give Johnny Walker hell in the stand-up where he's going to find opportunities to feint and then come in with his explosive punches. I think he's going to put Johnny Walker down, and I actually think he's going to finish Johnny Walker. I don't know if he's going to get on top of him and choke him out after dropping him or finish him with strikes, but I feel like at some point, whether it's the 2nd round, 3rd round, that Johnny Walker's going to start gassing because, again, he's going to have to I'll put it like this. I think he's got more question marks about his 5-round endurance than Santos is. Santos will find, I believe, opportunities to hurt Johnny Walker badly, to catch him with something that he hasn't seen before, like some sort of a setup, to then get a hard, like a hook, through in a combination, in an exchange, because again, I think Johnny Walker's going to want to trade bullets with him, and I think it's going to be ill-advised in some of the ways Walker wants to exchange, because all you have to do is watch Walker versus not only Corey Anderson, who stopped him, but against Ryan Spann, and see the predicament Walker put himself in and the way that he got caught against Spann. I think that same momentary over-anxiousness is going to backfire on Walker against Santos. So right now I'm going Santos, not only to win, but via stoppage. But yeah, let me know what you think about this one. I mean, Walker is a dangerous striker, so you can't write him off in that regard. I just think that the most likely outcome, because I have that much respect for Thiago Santos' stand-up abilities. And again, this isn't Glover Teixeira he's fighting, who's going to grind him out, fatigue him on the ground and pound, and just take his soul in that regard. Walker ain't that. So I think Santos is going to have more success than he did in his 3 prior fights, and I think he's going to get the big win via stoppage, which if he doesn't beat Johnny Walker here, you might have seen the last of Santos in the top 5, because again, he's 37 years old, 3-fight losing streak. You just start descending the rankings at that point. So this is kind of a must-win situation for Thiago Santos. It's one thing to lose against, John Jones and, you know, even Glover Teixeira, who again is fighting for the title now, that's one thing. But when you start losing to the next crop of guys coming up, like Alexander Rakic and now Johnny Walker, ooh, that would be bad news. Must-win situation for Thiago Santos, and I think he's going to pull it off via stoppage. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.